We have already seen what are virtual machines, what is virtual machine skill sets, and what is resource groups. We already know that we have the Azure region. So there is an hierarchy of Azure Cloud. There is a region. For each region, we have minimum of 3 availability zone. Zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. So each availability zone has multiple data centers. So let us take example of availability zone 1, which has 2 data center facilities. It can be more depending upon the region. When you deploy a virtual machine on the Azure cloud, you have the virtual machine, you deploy this on the Azure cloud. For each of the virtual machine what you are going to deploy, it can be single virtual machine. So whenever you deploy single virtual machine and use standard hard disk, which is nothing but the mechanical hard disk, this will have 95% of the SLA. For the same virtual machine, if you are going to use standard SSD, then the SLA will be 99.5%. For the same virtual machine, if you are using premium SSD, you have the SLA of 99.9%. So these are the SLA when you deploy a single virtual machine on the Azure cloud. If you are deploying a single virtual machine, then you are deploying in one of the data center. So you are going to deploy in one of the region, one of the availability zone. In this example, we will take AZ1, and you are going to deploy this particular virtual machine in one of the data center in availability zone 1. We have deployed a virtual machine in a single data center. So we have this virtual machine. We have this virtual machine which has been deployed in a data center. Let us say this region is called as US East. Under US East region, there is a availability zone 1, and you have deployed this virtual machine in one of the data center. If this fails, what will happen? The virtual machine will be offline. The virtual machine will be offline and you will not be able to access the virtual machine. You need to simply recreate the virtual machine. For this virtual machine what you have created, there will be OS disk. This particular disk will be 127 GB of size. And also by default, you will get a temp disk. Depending upon the size of the virtual machine what you are going to choose, the temporary disk size also varies. But you will get a temporary disk. This will be temporary purpose only. You should not store any data in the temporary disk. Temporary disk, as the name says, it's only for the temporary use. Never store any production data on your temporary disk. Even if there is a start or stop of the virtual machine, the data what you have stored will be lost. And there is a data disk. This data disk is the one what you are going to choose for your data. This is for storing the data. The image what you have selected for the virtual machine and the application configuration whatever you have done for this virtual machine, everything will be lost when there is a data center failure. The data disk what you have selected for your virtual machine can be of 2 types. So you will be selecting the data disk from the managed disk. So this managed disk will be of two types. One is locally redundant storage. The other one is zonal redundant storage. And this one is local redundant storage. This provides 11 nines of durability, and this will provide 12 nines of durability. This is per year. This can withstand only the server rack failure or any disk failure on the storage. So zone redundant storage, even if one of the availability zone fails, it can withstand. For LRS, the data will be replicated 3 times within the same data center. For the availability zone, which is zone redundant storage, it will be replicated 3 times, but in a different zone. If you have deployed your virtual machine and you have selected LRS, even though the LRS replicates 3 times, but this is within the data center itself. Since the data center has gone down, your LRS storage will not be available, and the data disk what you have created for the virtual machine, that will also be unavailable. So that is the reason either you need to create a ZRS, take the snapshot of the managed disk what you have created using the locally redundant storage. From this managed disk, which is LRS, you create a snapshot and place it into the storage type of ZRS. Even if there is a data center failure, because you have the snapshot which will be replicated 3 times between multiple availability zone, you will be able to recreate the data, or you will be able to restore the data, and the data disk whatever you have attached to the virtual machine, you will be able to reattach without any issues, and all the data will be available. Either you have to choose the ZRS while creating the virtual machine for your managed disk, or if you are selecting the locally redundant storage while creating the virtual machine for your data disk, then you have to create a snapshot in such a way that this snapshot will be residing on the ZRS storage. In summary, the data disk what you are creating for the virtual machine, there are two types of managed disk. One is locally redundant storage, the other one is zone redundant storage. Even though the local redundant storage replicates 3 times, but that replication will be within the data center itself. If the data center fails, you will not be able to restore the data or recover the data. That is the reason you need to choose the snapshot on a ZRS storage, or you need to choose the managed disk while creating your virtual machine as a ZRS storage. Only then it can withstand the data center failure for your data disk.